one will be mine.
I belong to no one.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of RT Essentials. I'm Mark Ellis. You're probably aware that the process of making a movie is not easy, and especially when done right, it can take some time, but some take longer than others. Like way longer, which is what we want to talk about today. Like when I say long, we're talking about movies whose production, from the start of production to the release date, took 3 years or longer. Now, of course, a bunch of films fall under that umbrella, but these are ones that maybe had a more mainstream release and were most definitely worth the wait. So here it is, our list of movies that took the longest to make, but don't worry, we'll deliver it to you in our normal allotted time. Apocalypse Now.
Okay, fellas, quit hiding. Come on, let's go, the cat, take off. Don't you think it's a little risky for R&R? If I say it's safe to surf this beach, Captain, it's safe to surf this beach. I mean, I'm not afraid to surf this place. I'll stay to surf this place.
And kicking things off is the psychological war drama Apocalypse Now. This film was directed, produced, and co-written by Francis Ford Coppola and is very loosely based on the 1899 novella Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, with the setting changed from late 19th century Congo to the Vietnam War. Apocalypse Now, which officially took 3 years to be completed, features big names like Marlon Brando, Robert Duvall, Martin Sheen, and Dennis Hopper. It follows a captain, played by Sheen, who is on a secret mission to assassinate a special forces colonel, played by Brando, who has been deemed to be insane. After a few years of development that saw Coppola move from being just a producer to the director too, filming began in March of 1976. And it only took a few days before things paused and a change was made, with Harvey Keitel being replaced by Martin Sheen for the role of Willard. From there, what was supposed to be a 5-month shoot was met with a series of issues to set things back. This includes Sheen suffering a near-fatal heart attack, pricey set pieces being destroyed by bad weather, and Brando arriving on set underprepared and overweight.
And suddenly he'll grab you and he'll throw you in a corner and he'll say, do you know that if is the middle word in life? If you can keep your head when all about you losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you. I mean, I can't, I'm a little man. He's a great man. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across floors of silent seas. I mean...
Stay with the boat.
Hey, don't go without me, okay?
And when filming finally did wrap, Coppola had shot nearly 200 hours of footage on roughly 1 million feet of film. And as editor of the project as well, he was faced with trimming it all down to size. That ultimately proved to be very difficult and caused several more delays. So nearly 3.5 years after filming began, Apocalypse Now officially hit theaters in August of 1979. It was a box office success and earned 8 Oscar noms, including Best Picture, and is widely considered to be one of the greatest and most influential films ever made. Zack Snyder's Justice League.
The energy is dissipating.
My God, it worked!
Saving the day next on this list is Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is the director's cut of the 2017 film Justice League, as the original director, Zack Snyder, intended it before he left production. After filming began in April of 2016, Snyder stepped down during post-production following the death of his daughter, and Joss Whedon was hired to finish the film. And after the poor reception of Snyder's rather dark Batman v Superman in 2016, Warner Brothers also tasked Whedon with lightening it up, making it shorter, and adding some humor. But once the first version was not well received after its release in 2017, this movement to release the version began almost immediately. Fans created an online petition that gained hundreds of thousands of signatures and used the hashtag #ReleaseTheSnyderCut across social media platforms. And after cast members like Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, and Jason Momoa showed their support for the Snyder Cut as well, wouldn't you know it, Warner Brothers actually gave it the go-ahead.
Not impressed.
To bring his full vision to fruition, Snyder spent around $70 million on visual effects and the score, editing, and new material that was being filmed. And while additional filming included the inclusion of Jared Leto's Joker and a scene with Ezra Miller that was directed over Zoom, ultimately the Snyder Cut only has about 5 minutes of newly shot material, but it does contain over 2,000 new visual effects shots. And finally, 5 years after cameras first started rolling on the Justice League, the Snyder Cut was released on HBO Max in March of 2021, clocking in at 4 hours long, and the fresh film is widely considered to be the superior of the two Justice League movies. Shrek.
Well, it's no wonder you don't have any friends.
Wow. Only a true friend would be that truly honest.
Listen, little donkey, take a look at me. What am I?
Really tall?
No! I'm an ogre. You know, grab your torch and pitchforks. Doesn't that bother you?
Nope.
Really?
Really.
And next on this list of movies that took the longest to make is 2001's Shrek. This film is loosely based on William Steig's 1990 picture book of the same name, the rights of which were originally acquired by Steven Spielberg in 1991. It was directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen in their directorial debuts. As it turns out, this eventual hit was 6 years in the making, which began in 1995 when producer Jeffrey Katzenberg and others began development for the newly founded DreamWorks Animation, which had purchased the rights from Spielberg.
Ogres are like onions.
They stink?
Yes. No.
Oh, they make you cry?
No.
Oh, you leave them out in the sun, they get all brown, start sprouting little white hairs.
No. Layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers.
Nicolas Cage was offered the role of Shrek but turned it down, so Chris Farley was cast and recorded much of the dialogue. But he sadly died in 1997 before his work was completed, and Mike Myers was hired to take over the role. After a script update, Myers recorded pretty much the whole film over the course of 1999. But after seeing a rough cut in February of 2000, Myers asked and was given permission to re-record the whole thing, this time with a Scottish accent. Along with that time-consuming venture, a year and a half was spent by a crew doing research and development to make the film motion capture. But that was ultimately deemed unsatisfactory in May of 1997, and it was switched to full-on computer animation. But it all worked out in the end, didn't it? The certified fresh Shrek went on to gross over $487 million at the worldwide box office, won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, launched a franchise, sold a few lunchboxes on the way, and the character of Shrek got his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Eraserhead. Adding a little shape to this list is 1977's Eraserhead. This surrealist horror film was written, produced, directed, and edited by David Lynch, who also created its score and sound design for what would be his first feature film. Shot in black and white, this film is about a man named Henry, played by Jack Nance, who is left to take care of his oddly deformed and loudly wailing mutant child in a desolate industrial landscape. Lynch produced this film with the assistance of the American Film Institute during his time studying there, but the staff had highly underestimated the scope of the project, having only greenlit a 21-page screenplay. So along with filming what was actually a feature-length movie around an active campus was the meticulous direction of Lynch and eventually funding issues, which led to the production lasting several years.
Henry.
Sorry.
You're in very bad trouble if you won't cooperate.
Well, Mary?
Mother!
An example of this arduous schedule includes one scene in the film that begins with Henry opening a door, with a full year passing before he was filmed actually entering the room. By the way, let's give credit to Jack Nance, who was so committed to the project that he never changed his memorable hairstyle throughout the whole production. Adding to the delays was the fact that Lynch, along with Alan Splett, worked for almost a year on the film's sound design, with the soundtrack including upwards of 15 sounds being played simultaneously. Because, that's David Lynch. And before its release in February of 1978, Lynch also went back and cut 20 minutes of footage of the certified fresh Eraserhead after a poorly received test screening, bringing its total runtime to 89 minutes and its total production time to 6 years. Sleeping Beauty.
Oh, we walk together and talk together. And just before we say goodbye, he takes me in his arms. And then I wake up.
Dreaming about the next spot on this list is 1959's Sleeping Beauty. This is the 16th animated film produced by Walt Disney, first published in 1697 by Charles Perrault. Walt first thought about adapting the fairy tale in 1938, but the project didn't really get legs until he officially announced its development in 1950. By 1952, he had rejected the first full storyboard, but the film was still full steam ahead with a Christmas 1955 release date. But by 1954, that release date had been moved back a couple years. And speaking of 1954, that's also the year that Walt Disney began construction on this little theme park called Disneyland and developing a couple of new TV shows to go along with the brand's expansion. So you have that distraction with the theme park and the guy who's interested in signing off every detail of everything he was involved in, and then you have Sleeping Beauty, which would be the first animated film to be photographed in the Super Technorama 70 widescreen process, further adding to the time spent.
Now shall you deal with me, O Prince, and all the powers of hell!
Plus, due to a musician's strike, the musical score was recorded in Germany with the Gronke Symphony Orchestra, and not until November of 1958. Of course, the constant production delays led to a significant increase in cost, as the film's eventual $6 million budget made it the most expensive Disney film up to that point, and over twice as expensive as previous films like Lady and the Tramp. But hey, what do you know? The certified fresh Sleeping Beauty was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Score. And it's, come on, it's a gosh darn classic. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. Next on this list of movies that took the longest to make is 2013's The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. This animated fantasy film is based on a 10th century Japanese literary tale called The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. It was directed and co-written by Isao Takahata in his final film before his death in 2018. The movie follows a tiny nymph found inside a bamboo stalk that grows into a beautiful young woman, voiced by Chloe Grace Moretz in the American dub. She tells her suitors to prove their love by completing a series of near impossible tasks. It took 8 years to get the film made, which was the first offering from Takahata in 14 years. The production process ended up being the subject of a documentary called Isao Takahata and His Tale of the Princess Kaguya. And basically the story is that the director and his staff decided to set up a whole new Ghibli studio, Studio Ghibli 7 to be exact, to meet the demands of a new type of animation as they went through the extensive trial and error process to create it. On top of that, and with the film already well behind schedule, Takahata made the decision to swap out composers in 2013, a year after the initial score began production. By the time of its release in November of 2013, The Tale of the Princess Kaguya had a budget nearing $50 million, the most expensive Japanese film at the time. But it's all good. The movie was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, losing out to Big Hero 6. And while it took a lot of time to get made, the Rotten Tomatoes critics' consensus calls it a modern animated treasure with timeless appeal. So there you go. Boyhood.
No, that is not how we are going to talk to one another, all right? No, I will not be that guy. You cannot put me in that category, all right? The biological father I spend every other week with, and I make polite conversation, while he drives me places and buys me No. Talk to me. Samantha, how was your week? I don't know, Dad, it was kind of tough. Billy and Ellen broke up, and Ellen's kind of mad at me because she saw me talking to Billy in the cafeteria.
Growing up and into this next spot on the list is 2014's Boyhood. This coming-of-age drama was written and directed by Richard Linklater, and unlike most of the films on this list, its very long production schedule of 12 years was done on purpose. Filmed with the same cast over that 12-year span, Boyhood depicts the childhood and adolescence of Mason, played by Eller Coltrane. We see him grow up from age 6 to 18 while living in Texas with divorced parents, played by Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette. Production began in 2002, with 6-year-old Coltrane hired to star, although due to a law, none of the cast could officially sign on to the project for more than 7 years. Luckily, they all stuck around for the full dozen. Linklater didn't have a full script at the beginning, but rather basic plot points, and would write it at a portion of time, taking into account all the things that Coltrane and others were experiencing in real life as they grew up.
You said that was gonna be my car when I turned 16.
What? No, I didn't. I never said that.
I remember. I was in 3rd grade, and you were taking me over to Anthony Nadar's house for his birthday, and we were there early, so we gave him a ride around the block. And he was talking about how much he loved your car, and so you were like, oh, this is gonna be Mason's when he turns 16.
What are you? All right, first off, I have no memory of that, all right? And second of all, I would never say that. Never.
Yeah, you did, though.
What? Mason.
It was also nice to have an established actor and filmmaker like Ethan Hawke involved as well, who vowed to finish the movie if anything were to happen to Linklater. Not to be too morbid or anything. At one point, the film was set to be called 12 Years, which would have been very on the nose for that movie and this episode, before going back to the earlier option of Boyhood. And it was finally released in 2014 and was a huge success, picking up 6 Oscar nominations, with Arquette winning Best Supporting Actress. It also won the BAFTA for Best Film and the Golden Globe for Best Drama, and has been featured on several critics' lists as one of the best films in the past decade or so. Avatar: The Way of Water.
I know one thing. Wherever we go, this family is our fortress.
Splashing its way to the next spot on this list is 2022's Avatar: The Way of Water. This film was directed by James Cameron and marks the second installment in the franchise following 2009's Avatar. And after the success of that one, Cameron announced the first 2 sequels in 2010, with this one initially slated for a 2014 release. So what took so long to make a sequel? Well, the same reason it took Cameron 20 years to get the first one off the ground. Dude's a perfectionist, and he's not gonna make something until the technology is available to bring his vision to life. And in this case, Cameron's vision included an Avatar world that's also completely underwater, hence our title. Thankfully, the CGI technology finally reached a satisfactory place to shoot performance capture scenes underwater, and Cameron and the cast got to work.
If you want to live here, you have to ride.
Let's do it.
Just breathe. Breathe.
With a reported budget of $250 million, which is one of the highest ever, filming began for this and Avatar 3 in September of 2017 in New Zealand and wrapped in late September of 2020 after over 3 years of shooting. And what an eventful shoot it was, considering Kate Winslet held her breath for over 7 minutes while filming an underwater scene, breaking a record previously held by Tom Cruise. It's their 12-year production schedule, but come on, that deserves some sort of acclaim. After a release date that faced repeated delays, The Way of Water finally hit theaters in December of 2022, setting the stage for the next 3 sequels to follow every other December through 2028. Unless, of course, James Cameron decides to wait again. Mad God. Next up on this list is 2021's Mad God. This stop-motion adult animated horror film was directed, written, and produced by Phil Tippett and was completed in 2021 after being in production over a period of 30 years. The film follows an assassin who travels through an underworld of tortured souls, cities in ruin, and other horrors. Tippett, one of the world's preeminent stop-motion animators, started on this project while he was working in visual effects on the film RoboCop 2 way back in 1990. He later shelved the idea during his time doing visual effects for Jurassic Park, as he was convinced that CGI animation was the future. About 20 years later, Tippett was convinced by members of the studio to begin working on the film again. And considering that every set and creature was handcrafted and painstakingly animated using traditional stop-motion techniques, the project continued on as a labor of love. Mad God has only a few live-action sequences where actors in puppet suits were used. Otherwise, it's all stop-motion. So Tippett enlisted the help of volunteers to do much of the heavy lifting, getting as many as 15 to 20 people to come in and help on weekends. Tippett also got some help from Kickstarter donations and kept people up to speed on the film's progress, with behind-the-scenes footage being posted on YouTube during production. And 30 years after first starting, the final result is a certified fresh hit, which makes it all worth it. The Other Side of the Wind.
Wanted to be an actor. Then he saw one of my films. We all read the interview.
He is a rough magician, isn't he?
You can kiss my sweet.
What did I do wrong, Daddy? Our revels now are ended.
You bet your sweet cheeks.
And the final film on this list is 2018's The Other Side of the Wind. This satirical drama was directed, co-written, co-produced, and co-edited by Orson Welles and posthumously released in 2018 after 48 years in production. The film follows a maverick director who returns to Hollywood after years of exile in Europe to finish his comeback movie, The Other Side of the Wind. Being filmed and edited off and on for several years was not an uncommon thing with movies that were personally funded by Welles, but this one kind of pushing it to the extreme.
We're all ruled by the wind, aren't we, lady? So if the Lord is a lady and God's will is her will, then we can all relax and stop expecting the universe to be logical.
You heard the man, lady. We're right back where we started. Back to Mama.
Now that's when Brooks sees at his best, and he's using straight Hannaford dialogue.
Welles began working on it from 1970 to 1976, and then again in the 1980s, but the project became embroiled in all kinds of legal, financial, and political complications to prevent its completion. For example, at one point in 1971, the government decided that Welles's European company was a holding company and not a production company, and slapped him with a huge tax bill. So he had to work on other projects in the meantime to pay that off. Welles eventually died in 1985, and after several attempts were made to finally finish the film, the rights were acquired by Royal Road in 2014. The finishing touches were overseen by actor and producer Peter Bogdanovich and producer Frank Marshall. The certified fresh film finally opened in November of 2018, and according to the RT critics' consensus, offers the opportunity to witness a long-lost chapter in a brilliant filmmaker's career. All right, that's the end of our list of movies that took the longest to make. The good news is that while the movies may have taken a super long time to get made, you can watch them in the normal amount of time it takes to watch a movie. Let us know which ones you love and which ones we left out. And for all you procrastinators out there, don't you feel a little bit better about yourself? You too can make a movie in just under 48 years. Thanks for tuning in to RT Essentials. I'm your host, Mark Ellis, and it took us a solid couple days to produce this episode. Mostly my fault. Sorry, editor.